Greetings, friends of the apocalypse. This is Podcast at Ground Zero, your home for the apocalypse. For episode 67, The Day. I am the apocalypse nerd. He is Adam Baum Glancy. And we're going to be talking about the movie, a movie called The Day tonight. And we'll get to that in a second. I'm sure we're going to have to go off on a tirade about something before we start this. So
yeah, it's pretty typical. What tirade things do we have to talk about today? Do we have any new material out there?
Well, we could have gone off on a tirade. Well, Scott and I were off on a tirade before we even started. But we tried to get some of it out of our system so we didn't spill over too much. Not a huge amount of stuff because I haven't been paying too much attention because I've been busy. But a couple things I did run across is it's too early to say this, but I always love to say this time of year. First goddamn week of winter. But
well, we got a couple things going on today. This is the solstice, right?
It is a solstice, so first goddamn day of winter. But
shortest day of the year. We had absolute blackout here in Seattle by 4:30.
Jesus.
It's fucking vampire country up here. All right. They're out in force.
That's crazy. A couple of things I did run across was a couple of things. Game-wise, the Fallout board game by Fantasy Flight Games is now out and available.
Excellent.
So people can pick it up. I demoed it at Gen Con. It seemed pretty good. It has, multiplayer. It has up to like 1 to 4 player, so you can play it solo, which is good.
Always good.
Also,
can you quickly give the audience an idea of what the board game is? Are you playing somebody from a vault? Are you a Fallout faction?
From what I remember, you could play it's randomly pick a character. Like you could play. I don't know the deep story behind it. But you like when we did the demo, we had somebody was, somebody from the Enclave. Somebody was a ghoul. Somebody was, just a vault dweller. So there's different characters. And you're basically running through the DC wasteland. And you're going, it's a hexagon tiles, and as you explore different areas, you're exposing different tiles, different events, different enemies, different things to find. You have different objectives, but
that's cool. That's actually very cool.
It seemed pretty cool. It's like I said, I'm definitely gonna get that because as we discussed before, I can't get the
the
tactical
warfare.
Yeah. Because I don't play tactical miniatures games. Number one. And even just to have the cool miniatures, it's like, forget about it. It's an arm and a leg, and I can't do it.
Didn't you say it was like $800 fucking dollars or something?
To get like a complete set, it would be like $800 to $1,000 or something like that. For like everything.
I love miniatures, and I am going to probably eventually spend I've probably spent $900 on miniatures right now in my lifetime.
That's it.
I managed to get a couple things on sale. I cleaned out a store. Well, I cleaned out a store that was going out of business. We're running out of those options in the Seattle area, but and I got some stuff really cheap from Bob Merch. So there's that going for it. But I probably haven't spent more than maybe $1,000 so far in 6 years. But I could certainly see spending $800 in a year on miniatures, but they're going to be metal. I don't know why I'm a snob. I'm just such a snob about plastic. I realize it's a character flaw, people, but
because you're a fussy old grognard, so if it's not metal, I don't want it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That you got all kinds of things you're an elitist about, but I gotta admit, when it comes to miniatures, holy cow!
What, me?
Yeah, you.
Oh.
Yeah, you.
But also, Scott, because you know why you like them? Because they're metal. So.
Well, you make a good point, sir.
Yeah,
they are clearly fucking metal.
If you can't take them off the shelf and throw the horns, then it's not worth taking off the shelf.
All right, I feel so much better.
But because they're resin, they have some plastic and resin. And I know it's the modern way to do things, but it's just I'm like you. I like nice. You feel like you have something. Yeah. But
exactly.
But not going to get that. But the Fallout board game looks pretty cool. There's also another board game that came out by a new board game company called. Well, they're actually they're a comic book company called IDW. They do comic books.
I remember them.
But now they're doing board games, and one of the board games that they have come out with that is now available is Planet of the Apes board game. The game, they didn't have it at Gen Con, the demo, but they just had the pieces. It's something that, again, can be played solo or I think up to 4 players. They kind of did it like kind of in a retro style, retro feel, because they wanted to feel like it was from the 70s. Like even some of the mechanic-wise, it's kind of old school. Like I've seen some people complaining that it's too much like Yahtzee with matching dice and stuff like that. Because it's an old. They just purposely. It was a purpose, the intent to make it like that, like old school, and the way the pieces look.
I hope to Christ there's a spinner. If there's a spinner,
no, because it's dice, so it's it's random. But it looks. I'll pick it up at some point. But it looks interesting, and they're gonna because it's based off the original Planet of the Apes, 1968. So they're gonna do that, and then they're or was it 69? I forget.
I want to say it's 68 for Planet of the Apes.
And then they're going to do other ones based on the other movies, like then Beneath the Planet of the Apes. So they're going to continue on the saga, So it's worth checking out. So that looks pretty. So that's out. I've seen you can get it like pretty cheap on Amazon now. Like it's like maybe it's not doing well, but I don't know. But it looks interesting. So the Planet of the Apes board game's coming out, and also I saw a trailer for a movie called The Manual. It's basically the character is the last human, and he has he was brought up by like a robot, like a machine, like an android, and so he has no other interaction with people, and it's just because he's the last one, and the machine's his only companion. And the machine's like, oh, in the like the big thing is like if there's a manual, as long as we do things by the manual, everything will be fine. So it could be interesting. I don't know. I'll have to check it out. I saw where I see a lot of this stuff for movies is there's a site called Quiet Earth, and they've been around for a long time. They're a really good resource for when any kind of like they do other things that are not quite apocalyptic movies, but generally their stuff's like apocalyptic. So Quiet Earth is a good place to go. So those are like the major things I see. Seen nothing crazy because I've been busy with stuff. But as I see new stuff, I'll post that up. And then I also speaking of The Thing, because we were talking how it's it's Christmas season, so you got to watch The Thing. So 3 weeks ago, at one of my board game nights, I got to play The Thing board game.
Okay.
And we played it because one of the other people in the group got it, wanted to play it, and we had a full complement, 8 people.
Ooh!
So we got to play a full game of it. And
now, how did that play? How did it feel as far as how fast did it move? Did it drag?
No, it moved really quick because the circumstances, like it wasn't until towards the end that we started getting more sabotages and people messing with them. Like we went through the first, because there's like 3 phases. Like there's phase 1, 2, and 3. So we were successful in all our missions and things weren't going wrong. We were defeating the bad guys, so things were going pretty quick. So we weren't slowed down because as things go wrong, you wind up getting slow. There's like a meter, and you wind up getting slowed down. So that was different than the demo. The demo we kept on getting like screwed up. So it went pretty quick, but as it got towards the end, that's when it started getting tense because we're like, okay, well, we just had this happen and that happened. Okay, you were there, so it had to be you and this and that, and you didn't want to do this, or this must be you. We need to tie him up. We need to do this blood test. People started getting like paranoid, so it was pretty cool, But
wow.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but we ultimately lost, unfortunately, on my decision.
Oh, because you were actually the Thing again?
No, I was not. And we wound up having 3 things because you could get with an 8-player game, you will have 2 to 3 things, just depending on how the cards get drawn. So we had 3, and actually one of the last somebody who was a Thing made me the last captain, and I got to make the decision on who gets blood tested and who gets to stay and who gets to go. I found like at least one of the things, and then I made a decision. Like who gets to come and who gets to go, and a Thing got on the helicopter, so we lost because they played it up pretty good.
Damn.
But
All right.
but it's good. It's definitely much better play when you have a lot of people because you get so much more cross interaction. You know.
Yeah. No, I can imagine that because it's that the more people, the more people to distrust. I mean, the whole point is it's a fuck your neighbor game or get fucked by your neighbor game. And the more neighbors you have, just, the more intense it'll be.
Yep, secret identity. The hidden identity. So it was pretty good. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. So, but that's all I really got. Nothing heavy this time. And I know a couple of people have emailed about the contest, which I said I was going to post. I'm going to. I just haven't had a chance to. I've been just busy. So, but I'm going to post a transmission from the bunker with the contest rules. Some people send us some short stories. Actually, somebody sent me something that I think I've gotten like 2 of them so far. I'm not going to reveal, but it's really clever. I really like what they did. So unless somebody can top that, I don't know. It's like, because I just like. I'm like, I don't want to say it on the air, but
all right. Let's not jinx it.
Yeah, it's not jinx them, but I'll get it open to other people. I promise. Before the end of the year, I'll post something, folks, because they said you got this. I got work. I got the holidays. I'm going to relatives. I'm just too busy. So
my holidays are fucked too. It's all holidays. It's travel. It's a birthday. It's the wife's birthday. It's surgery.
Yeah.
It's happening just a couple more days. It's busy.
Yeah, it gets real life sucks.
It really does.
Again, I keep on thinking how I want to go back to the Stranger Thing days when I was that age and how I had no responsibility and all I had was fun.
Yeah, it didn't seem like it. It seemed like nothing but restrictions. Ha 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 ha. Little did you know.
Did you watch the second season, by the way?
I have finished the second season of Stranger Things. We can. I thought, do we spoil anything? Do we care? It's not apocalyptic. It's not apocalyptic. Do we really talk about it on this show?
Yeah. Do we go off a topic all the time?
That's a good point. We have no discipline.
No discipline.
You know what? I was very pleased that they.
By the way, folks, we'll give the standard spoiler alert. But if you watch the show, you should know the whole damn show's a spoiler. So
I'll say this much: they confounded my expectations, my '80s expectations on Paul Reiser, right?
Yes.
We know who Paul Reiser is. Paul Reiser, I don't care what TV show he was on, what sitcom, he's always going to be Burke to us.
He's always Burke.
Always going to be Burke to us. So by putting him in there, that was a smart 80s move to confound our expectations. I thought it was and frankly, what's his name? Sean Astin.
Yeah.
Sean Astin confounded my expectations.
He did a good job. He did a great job.
They set him up in one way, and he delivered.
And they changed stuff because it was him.
Oh, did they? Good.
Yeah, I've read. They changed like a lot of some of the original outcome of that character changed because it was him and the way he was performing. It's like, okay, we got to change this.
Yeah.
So. And he made a lot of references. He made Goonie references.
Yes, he did. So I really appreciated the way that they confounded, some of the expectations from our '80s thinking on some of that stuff. That was really well done. Generally was pretty happy with it.
I like the further character development of the characters.
Yes,
they got more in depth with them, which I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Instead
Absolutely.
of that. Because the first time it's like they only get the only I'm kind of partially in the boat. Like there's the one episode that was very, it seems out of place compared to some of the other episodes, but I understand that it was important for the development of the character. Why they had to do it.
You mean the episode where we followed 11
mm-hmm.
for that whole episode?
Yeah,
to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. They're setting up something for a future season. It's going to be all about that.
Yep. But, I understand why they did it. It's like For me, it was one of the weaker episodes, but but again, you needed that for the character's development, for the character to get to the point that they need to get to. You needed that that catalyst to move them along. So
agreed.
But hold on. I told you those peppers, but
the peppers are back.
They're coming back to haunt me. Folks, don't eat poblano peppers before you're going to do a show. So because it
important safety tip, Egon. Speaking of Ghostbusters, which I was super thrilled with all the Ghostbusters references in 1980. These kids would be over Star Wars. Star Wars was when they were 5 or when they were 6.
Well, they were
or younger. Actually,
the characters should have been 12 to 13 in this episode, and it was 1984. So Star Wars was 7 years ago, so they would have been 7 or 8.
Yeah, they'd have been. They're over. They've had their Star Wars turn.
No. Empire came out in 80. So they would have been about 10 when Empire came out, and Return of the Jedi came out in 83, which is the previous year.
Yeah. So they had a Millennium Falcon or whatever, but the latest thing, Ghostbusters, that was a really nice touch.
Yeah. But by the time I was that, because in the timeline with those characters, like I think in the first season they were in 7th grade, I think they were 7th grade. I would have been like in 9th, so I wasn't that much older than them. At that point, I was pretty much, now mind you, I was a Star Wars fanatic when that came out, even through Empire. But all of a sudden, my interest dropped. I did not even see Jedi in the theaters. I never saw it in the theater. I so did not care about Jedi at that point.
Huh. Yeah, well, don't worry. Jedi finished it off for me pretty hard with those fucking Ewoks. And then when I thought I couldn't suffer anymore, they came back and brought up Jar Jar Binks. And in the words of Tim Beasley, compared to Jar Jar Binks, the Ewoks were fucking Shaft.
Yeah. This hopped up version of a toy advert, but I get it, because I was over Star Wars at that point. I didn't care. I didn't care anymore. Even though I was, those kids pretty much. That mentality of the science fiction. I was, speaking of the thing came out in 1982. I was 13. I saw that when I was 13. I'm watching things like, rated R movies like The Thing, The Road Warrior, all that stuff, Conan, so I was beyond the Star Wars at that point. I was into, I don't think I had to wait till HBO and sneak it when my parents weren't looking to see Conan. But no, I saw that in the theaters. But anyway, let's go back. It seems like apocalypse. I think we're talking about the apocalypse. Yeah, this episode has kind of become, off-topic episode, not an actual movie. So let's hone in here on The Day. The Day, folks, right there, if you could see that. Mm-hmm. The Day, which also stars. Speaking of Lord of the Rings, and speaking of Sean Astin, it has Dominic Monaghan. Is that his last name? Monaghan. Dominic Monaghan's in it. So what was he? Pippin or Merry? I can't remember. But I think he's Pippin. I think. Yeah. So we had a Hobbit in this movie, but let me pull up the info here. The film, The Day, was a Canadian film. It's funny how the Canadians do a lot of post-apocalyptic films. So it was a Canadian film, 2011. It was originally released in the fall 2011. Did not come out to the States until August of 2012. So I can't believe it's been 5 years since I saw that. I actually saw it in the theaters. It was only released in 29 theaters in the United States. Wow, you saw it in the theater? Yeah, it was 29 theaters in the U.S. It was playing in Miami, North Miami. So it was about a 45-minute drive for me to go to the movie theater to see it, because I was like, okay, I got to see this movie. It was only playing there. Mm-hmm. So I saw that in the theater. I dragged Nancy down there, and we saw that in the theater. So yeah, it came out in 2012. The basic premise of the movie is it starts off after the apocalypse. It starts off, you're focused on a group of 5 survivors traveling through, a bleak wasteland, of course, looking for food, shelter, and they always seem to be tense and on the run because they're running from one of the they're not running, but they're on the lookout for one of the predominant post-apocalyptic tropes.
Well, they refer to them as tribes. You know what I mean?
The tribes.
The big problem is now the tribes, who are the new primitives.
And the tribes are, we're going to spoil some stuff, but you can find out it's basically cannibals. So
gangs of cannibals.
Gangs of cannibals, because the environment's pretty bleak, and it's at least 10 years after whatever event happened.
Yeah, they say that at some point, that we're 10 years into the problem.
Over 10 years. So, but I don't think it's like 15. It's probably like maybe 11 years or so, but they said over 10. So we're 10 years into this event, whatever it was. They don't talk about it. They don't say what it is.
No, they don't say nuclear, biological. But I tell you, there's that one thing where the girl says, you two are on tracking duty, and someone's response is like, we haven't seen any game in 2 years.
Birds.
We haven't seen any birds in 2 years, which to me also implies they may be short of other things to eat as well if they haven't seen any birds. So it's bad news. It reminds me a little bit of the road in that.
Oh yeah, because normally birds are one of those things that will thrive. Like if you've ever watched any of those, we should cover those one day. Is those Life After People shows? Remember they had those on History Channel like 10 years ago?
Oh yeah, great shows.
Those are great. I got all they talk about, and I've also read other books at that time related to that, like The World Without Us, and there's some other movies they talk about how, like, if you remove man from the equation, how things will just start to grow in population, and animals are one of those things that'll grow, especially birds. Like we wiped out bird populations like pigeons and stuff in the northeast, with all those punt guns and the ducks and quail, all that stuff. We wiped out those populations because they were like so thick, and then if you remove electrified power cables and mankind, they will the populations will increase. So if 10 years after that there's not massive flocks of birds and other wild animals, there's some other bigger problem that happened, because it's not like, okay, we're eating all of them, because apparently a lot of people have died as well. So it's not like all of a sudden the power went off and we ate everything. A lot of people died on top of that. So something probably caused a lot of the animals to die off as well.
Yeah. Whatever the environmental disaster is, it's caused mass extinctions, not just amongst humans, but amongst all populations.
Yeah, because they're like looking for They said looking for tracks, and they feel it's kind of useless. So who knows what it is?
Which is why we have cannibals. We're 10 years in. They've got these seeds with them that they're talking about. One day we'll get to plant these seeds when we find a piece of land that's worth anything, which implies that maybe there's something wrong with the soils or something. Yeah. So they've given us at least they have the right timeline for a descent into cannibalism. We've often talked about how cannibalism being one of the great tropes. Yeah, one of the great tropes of post-apocalyptic fiction. Why does that happen so fast? It's like and this much like The Road gives us. Yeah, we're 10 years into it. They've run out of everything else.
Oh yeah, because a lot of these post-apocalyptic scenarios are like, all of a sudden it's like, well, the lights went out, I better start eating my neighbors. It's like they haven't even run out of anything yet. So
yeah, certainly was it cannibalism in that German film about global warming?
Oh,
where everyone's trying to get to the Bavarian Highlands, the mountains.
Hell.
Yeah, wasn't there cannibalism involved in that?
Yes, there was.
Yeah. But it didn't. But again, it was like, how fast did this happen? It seemed like it was super fast.
Well, I think it'd been going on for a while though.
They're in a car. They're trying to relocate from the.
Crops couldn't grow. it was so hot.
Yes. All right. Yeah. But they get to the highlands, and I'm like, well, why aren't you assholes in the mountains trying to grow something? You just went straight to cannibalism, huh? Okay. But these guys, and another thing about cannibals is, which we learned from the colony, is that as soon as you become a cannibal, you get superpowers.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Remember that? You get filed teeth. You can crawl through air vents. You can jump like 15 feet through the air. And you get at least 2 comebacks. When the heroes think you're dead, you can jump up again at least, 2 more times and go, bah.
Huh.
That's pretty standard cannibal superpowers.
Well, I better start eating people then.
Remember, Tuesday is Soylent Green Day.
Today is Tuesday. But
yeah, but the cannibals were not totally stupid.
No,
it's nice that they weren't stupid.
They seemed this very matter of fact about stuff.
Yeah. There was a little bit of mugging for the camera in some cases. I did like the one thing is like where the one guy got killed by a trap, and they're like, the cannibals show up and they're like, hey, just give us the one guy. We'll catch you guys some other day. I mean, what are you going to do with him? He's dead. What do? Carry him away? You bury him, we'll just dig him up. I mean, just give us the one guy. And I thought, well, that's pretty reasonable for a psychopath.
Yeah.
Which
I wouldn't believe a word he says, because as soon as you come out, they're going to,
Oh, yeah. But at least they tried to act like we're totally reasonable cannibals, I guess. And something else I noticed, they make the comment when they end up having a conflict with the cannibals about how, well, we've killed some of them. Shouldn't that feed them for a month? Why are they still after us? But do you remember the first time you see the cannibal camp?
Yes.
Do you remember what the leader's doing? He's over some graves.
Oh, yeah.
He's over these graves, which made me think, I don't know that these cannibals eat their own. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe they just put the bones there.
Yeah, maybe. But
because of something that happened, and let's not reveal too much.
All right. That story was from a different tribe. The story that character told was from a different tribe than this tribe. That this tribe might have different rules about who goes in the stew pot and who doesn't.
Well, if you have no food, meat is meat, though.
It might get, the one I always remember is the road, where they shoot that one guy on the side of the road and run off, and when they come back, the only thing they find left is his guts. That before those other cannibals pulled out, they just fucking cleaned him like a deer carcass. And I was like, oh shit. Yeah, that's fucked. That's uppercase fucked.
Yeah, exactly. That it's just so like, oh, Bob died. Well, let's just cut him up because we're gonna eat him. He's sentient, intelligent. He's not just a cattle.
Yeah.
Okay, meat. But I guess when you're in that world where you're that desperate, where there is absolutely nothing, I mean, I guess it's hard for in our modern cushy society to, unless you're a serial killer, to get into that mentality of, well, I'm going to eat people. It's like, but I guess when you're in a situation where there is absolutely nothing, it's like, I eat Bob or I die.
Yeah, I'm going to presume. Well, the place you find that in real life is 19th and 20th, early 20th century shipwrecks. There's a lot of case law in which, strangely enough, ran across on the law of the sea, and boy, they were very careful about defining when you could and could not eat your fellow shipwreck victims. Because that came up. That was just a thing that happened.
Look at the famous plane crash in the 70s. Where it was the soccer team.
Yeah, it's Ecuadorian or Uruguayan soccer team.
The plane crashed in the mountains, and they had to eat each other. They had to eat this, the dead to survive.
Yeah. They didn't draw lots or anything. It was just plenty of people died in the plane crash, and because they were at such a high altitude, they didn't rot. They were frozen bodies, so they didn't lose that potential to the environment. If it had been the jungle, those bodies would have spoiled by the time they got hungry enough to make the decision.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't have been able to, and they would have died. Or they would have had to, or they could have ended up murdering each other. But they in a sense lucked out a little bit that they were able to live off the casualties from the plane crash.
Lucky them, you get to eat your fellow passengers, you know.
They got enough guys, enough strength to go get help, you know. It's back to Truckee Lake and the Donner Party, you know.
Yeah.
But
so cannibals.
We're going to talk more about like the characters, the setting, what things about this movie ticked your boxes on post-apocalyptic survival scenarios, because this movie isn't about relationships. It's not like there's a romance. There's no framing romance. There are relationships between the characters. There is no overarching mission like we've got to get these seeds to somewhere. The thing with the seeds is just like this weird little piece of hope that the one guy that Dominic Moynihan kind of uses to motivate people, but there's no real. The resolution to that is not part of this story. They just
seem to be on a day. They're just like on a day-to-day. Okay, we got to get out of here. We got to do this. We have to that. We got to keep moving, because apparently the roaming cannibal tribes must be everywhere if they're afraid that they're going to run into them. You know.
Yeah. That they're pushing 20 miles a day with a sick guy, and because one of the characters gets sick, it slows them down. They seek shelter, get out of the cold, get out of the rain.
And the movie seemed to also take place. Well, it was filmed in Canada, but it was probably kind of Midwestish, I would think, right? Kind of like
It looked like they were aiming for the Great Plains, like Nebraska, Kansas. I mean, and there's plenty of that in Canada. If they go to Manitoba or Saskatchewan, they get a lot of the same countryside, and then that's what it looked like. Farmhouses on rolling countryside with some trees, but a lot of big open fields. You know, they shot it with kind of a washed out look. You know, so it kind of had almost a black and white feel to it, but
it wasn't quite black and white. But it was very washed out.
Yeah.
Like the dynamic of the characters are, or like they, because they get along. Like I think the primary characters were like all friends from high school.
Yeah. There's three guys who are friends from high school. One girl who had joined them for years, and one woman who had joined them maybe weeks before.
Yeah, recently. And they said at one point their party was larger.
12.
12. And they've lost them over the years. Kind of reminds me of Dawn of the Dead, the remake. The 2004. He's like, we tried to cross the highway. What was he like? Back when there was 10 of us or something like that.
Yeah, that didn't work out so hot.
No.
One of the things that really I liked was when Dominic Moynihan makes them do their inventory.
Yeah.
And they also showed them
discipline. He tries to keep things disciplined and ordered, because they've been in this shit a long time.
Yeah. And they have a protocol that they're constantly trying to follow. And they even showed them cleaning their weapons, which doesn't happen very much, but I'm always pleased when I see that in a movie where they're cleaning their weapons.
Oh, especially 10 years out.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a bit where somebody's shotgun lands on a click at some point in the film, and when they reveal why it's a click, it's one thing, but for me, I was like, I'm willing to believe a stupid writer trick of this weapon misfiring, because it's 10 years out and it's been used and used and used and used, and there's just going to be a point where it's gonna fail in a way that you as a user will not be able to fix it.
Yeah, because things are going to wear smooth, parts. Because that's funny, because the book I'm reading, I talked about last time I picked up Some Will Not Die
Mm-hmm.
by Algis Burgess, and it's apocalyptic, but it's more like it takes place like I think like 30, 40 years after it was like a plague that wiped a lot of mankind out, and mankind's kind of come together, but like kind of like feudal state type of stuff. And there's one point in the book where they're talking about, because it's like these characters, like there's these bandits in the mountains, and they're talking to them, and they're like, because this must be at least 30, 40 years maybe afterwards, and they're talking about how it's like, yeah, their rifles are essentially smoothbores at this point, because that rifling after 30, 40 years of constant use and not be clean, the barrels are worn, were smooth. So I thought that was interesting. So anyway, that's just kind of related with the guns. So it was good that they showed that. We won't reveal kind of some of the stuff that happened, but basically they wound up holing up someplace, which winds up not being a good idea because it creates problems for them.
Yeah. Not only is it a classic sort of assault on precinct 13 style siege, right?
Yep.
There's a couple of things that they do really well in this thing. One, what the house is makes sense.
Correct.
The house, the fact that it hasn't been stripped for wood, or there's not people living in it, and there's certain things that happen in the plot that really, I think we can reveal this part of the plot because they show up the trailer, don't they?
I don't know.
All right. You don't want to spoil too much, but
basically, there's a house, and the house isn't good. But the house has a purpose.
Yeah, and the other thing that worked for me was there's a point where the bad guys have taken a lot of casualties trying to get them, but keep trying. And there's one particular casualty that I was like, okay, now I see why they're not giving up, or at least why the leader isn't giving up, because he loses somebody in his close family as part of the fight unexpectedly. And so then it's all this personal shit. It's like, it's not like, we can just give up and go, not the least of which, because at some point, the bad guys score a victory, but do you get the impression that the person they killed, they couldn't actually do anything with? Because he's sick. I don't want to give away too much, but there's somebody who they could get their hands on somebody who's sick. Yeah. What can you do with a sick person? Except everybody in the tribe gets his disease.
Yeah, because it's kind of like I guess kind of like from The Walking Dead, mm-hmm. The comic ended in the TV show where he was bitten and he's like, yeah, I'm tainted meat. You kind of got that thing going on.
Yeah. And also what they give is a Lucifer's hammer, where the first group of cannibals, the army deserters, were all sick at some point.
Yeah.
Because they ate somebody who was sick. And that's why they end up capturing a doctor and forcing him to go along with them to clear who can be eaten and who can't be eaten. It's going very badly for our cannibals, but they keep pushing because it's gotten crazy.
Personal.
It got crazy personal. That I was willing to believe that, to an extent.
Because it's always that whole. I mean, it's kind of a trope, but it's a real thing. Anytime you get the bad guys are going to do X to you, okay, but if you don't let them do X to you and you fuck with them and hurt them, then all of a sudden you're an asshole. And they're going to get you, and they're going to follow you to the ends of the earth because you did this. It's like, okay, but you were going to do all that to me, and that's okay. But now I'm doing it to you. It's not okay. And
if they had escaped from our cannibals without inflicting any casualties, maybe the cannibals would have given up. Because on the grounds that how much calories are going to burn. But once they caused casualties amongst the tribe, it was like, it got more and more personal. One of the things I wanted to point out is that I thought really made sense is at some point, I mean, we're talking about it's a siege of a house, right? It's late in the game that they start lighting the house up with Molotov cocktails. This old, drafty wooden house that's just a pile of kindling.
Yeah.
And there was a good reason why in the movie why they don't burn the house right away. You know, a very good reason. And I, as a viewer, I was like, oh, of course not. I mean, of course they wouldn't immediately light the house on fire and then just get people when they run out. You know, flush them out. This house has a purpose, and you light it on fire. That undoes a lot of work.
Yep.
So
it's an investment, and you don't want to get rid of you don't want to destroy your investment.
Yeah. So I like that there was a reason why they kept in contact, kept fighting, kept the siege up, even though they took casualties. I like that there was a reason why they didn't go straight for fire as an option, because the cannibals are the one thing they should have had but didn't was bows and arrows or crossbows or something. But they've got a lot of hand weapons, camp axes, machetes, hammers, crowbars. They've got homemade spears, but they didn't really have any ranged weapons. Maybe they didn't have them because the special effects department was afraid they couldn't do arrows really well in the film.
Yeah, there was a couple times where you saw the special effects were a little.
It's not squibs. It's digital gunshot impacts, right?
Yeah, but even blood. But again, it's a small film,
very low budget.
But they did a good job of what they had. It's
Did you notice that when they burned the house, the house being on fire was a combination of CGI fire but actual smoke?
Yes.
I thought that was a nice touch, a nice move by the production team, because the smoke is real and it provides more believability for the fire.
Yeah, because CGI just starts to look totally fake, but
especially smoke on a low budget.
And you're right; they had no ranged weapons, no like even throwing spears, bows or something they might have been able to make. It's 10 years out now. I could see maybe them. Well, again, in this country, people not having guns, especially if a lot of the population's dead. I mean, I could see maybe because they just ran out of ammo. Because over 10 years. If nobody's making it, we've discussed guns and ammunitions on the show at length. If nobody's making new bullets, things, supply is going to run out eventually. No matter, because whatever the chaos was in the beginning of whatever event, people are going to burn through stuff like nobody's business because they're trying to fight and survive. But when you get 2 and 5 and 7 and 10 years out, people are a little more conservative because it's like, okay, well, a lot of bullets are gone. They're hard to find now. Even though people have hundreds and thousands of rounds stacked up, you got to find it. And you know what? Something's sitting in somebody's, house for 10 years. How good are those bullets going to be? I think we talked about things, unless they're stored in like proper conditions.
Mm-hmm.
If something's just sitting there in an open house, humidity, moisture, the bullets are not going to be good.
Well, since the bad guys had, sort of decided they weren't going to light the house on fire, as a siege, ranged weapons were not their best option in a lot of ways, simply because it's dark out. They come in the dark, which makes using rifles harder. It was harder for the defenders to use rifles because they can't see that far. Nobody's got any flashlights that are worth a damn. I mean, they had like one flashlight in the whole group, right? And even that one, yeah. Which, personally, I would have loved to have seen a hand crank flashlight, rather than one that was operating on batteries. But I'm trying to think of like crossbows would have been cool, or spear throwers like an Otlotl.
Yeah.
But an Otlotl is not that great for a siege. No. If they flushed them out of the house and then those big open fields, I think an Otlotl would be really awesome, for hitting somebody who's, out in the open in a field or something like game. But
they could have maybe made crossbows, because crossbows are a simple device to make, and especially because what you make the front part of the bow with. You find a car with leaf springs and you take one of the leaf springs out and you use that to make for that.
Yeah. I suspect that some of that might have been a matter of the props department did not want to didn't want to deal with the having to CGI aero flights or something because it wouldn't be safe, or they didn't have the budget to like safely, recreate that weapon. The weapon, none of the weapons in that movie, I don't think any of them fired blanks. I think it was all CGI gunshots. So it may have been a matter of safety. I don't know. Can't be 100% sure. But regardless, yeah, that was seemed odd that the bad guys didn't have.
Oh, you froze up, Scott. Well, folks, Scott is frozen right now, so he's either going to drop or he's going to come back. I don't know. So it looks like, yeah, where is he, folks? No. So anyway, so Scott was saying with the CGI, and I get that. I get that point with having to, be cost effective with that. And one thing they did have, as we said, like towards the end here, I'm just hoping Scott will come back at some point. What'll happen is now he is totally frozen. Now what like they said they burned. Yeah, he's coming back in here now. I was just continuing to talk because you froze up there. So
well, that's what I was doing because you froze up. We'll figure out which one of us actually got recorded. It was probably you.
Yeah,
the primary call.
And I'm seeing I'm seeing another Scott. I still see your frozen profile there.
Yeah, with his AK-47. I was very pleased to see that the AK-47 still worked 10 years after the apocalypse. The one guy had an AK rifle, and I'm like, yes, of course it's still working. It's like that. It's like that scene in Sleeper, the Woody Allen movie, where he gets in the Volkswagen that's 200 years old and it starts up on the first try. Yeah, that's the AK. Starts up on the first try.
No, I don't want. I'm just saying. Oh, I got rid of your profile. Other one. Okay, cool. All right. So, I was continuing with saying, with the CGI is they had the Molotovs towards the end to create the fire to burn the house. Now, you would think like, well, how do they have gasoline? Because we've had that discussion on the show about fuel, how it goes bad, especially after a decade. And I'm sure it's not being manufactured. But if I want to say, do you think that I think they might have had a still in that little village they had? I don't know.
Yeah, the question about a still is you have to have something to compost.
Yeah, that's true too.
And almost anything worth composting to create alcohol has sugar or carbs in it, and that means you could have eaten it. But if they're cannibals, they might make the choice, oh, look, we can turn this into booze and be drunk or use it for an antiseptic or use it as a weapon. Maybe that's more valuable to them at this stage.
Because they're getting their protein they're getting their, the protein. What protein would you like on your salad? Yeah. Oh, long pig? That seems to be their choice of sustenance.
Yeah.
No matter what.
So there's a good chance that, that they just made the decision at that point. Oh, a few, pounds of grain or a few pounds of rotted vegetable material. Screw it. We'll just compost it and put it in a what do you call it? A sour mash, and grow and cook it down for alcohol. Because alcohol is super duper useful.
Oh yeah.
If you can spare it, alcohol is super useful for cleaning wounds, for painkiller, for any number of things, including a weapon.
Yep.
And that house being so old and
didn't take a lot.
It would not take. You do not have to have a super accelerant to get that bad boy lit up. Not at all. It was a cold apocalypse. It was good and chilly. Everyone's nice and bundled up, which I quite liked. Nice and gray. Combat wasn't ridiculous. I didn't, there wasn't. It was. It really wasn't. all in all, it was pretty well done. And I got to tell you, that ending.
Yes. Yeah. There's definitely when I rewatched it, I forgot exactly what happened. Like, oh, that's right. So
that ending was good.
yes.
I really liked that ending because it was, maybe it was cynical. I don't know, but it's like, yeah, no, there's no kumbaya. Okay, kids, there is no kumbaya.
Well, it tricked me at first because I watched it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Blah 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 blah. Oh no, that's right. It's not that. It's something else. Okay,
yeah. Really super duper happy with that ending.
Yeah, good ending.
Yeah.
But overall, good film. Again, low budget. Not major hype.
On a 5-point scale, do we give it at least a 4?
On the post-apocalyptic scale, yeah, I'd give it 4 mushroom clouds.
Yeah, it's at least as good as it's superior to a lot of stuff that's out there. As low budget, because a lot of low budget stuff gets above itself. It gets too ambitious. It thinks it's going to be Road Warrior or whatever, and this did not get ambitious. It's a story about one 24-hour period, and in one location.
Well, if people listen to this stuff, and I usually don't. Again, I've never been one to follow critics. I've never been one to listen to other people's fucking opinions. But on Rotten Tomatoes, which seems to be the go-to site from now, everybody's like, "Oh, if Rotten Tomatoes says this, that must be true." It only has a 29% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Really? That's really low then, right?
Very low. That's considered rotten. But there's only 14 reviews of it. That's it.
Well, I don't think certainly don't think it's that bad. I know what a 29 on a post-apocalypse meter looks like, and that's going to be, I don't know,
something with the Barbarian Brothers or something,
Yeah, we can, or David Carradine.
Yeah,
there's going to be any number of bad David Carradine films that it's gonna be like that. No, this is certainly superior to that. And again, it was super low, but it was superior to another cannibal fest that came out of the 8 Films to Die For series called Tooth and Nail, which stood out for having what's his name, Mike Madsen and Vinnie Jones in it as some of the bad guys, and can't remember who else is it. There's one other actor, the actor who played the security guard in the Dawn of the Dead remake, who's been all over things like House of Cards. I'm looking him up right now because I should know this guy's name because he's just a,
Well, and I'm reading the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes because, again, just from our years of going to the film festival and exposure to real amateur and small budget filming, which kind of gives us more tolerance, I think, for small films. Because a lot of times small films are about the idea, not necessarily all the not all the frickin' Michael Bay whiz bang explosions. These rotten. It's just like these people. Again, these people have no fucking clue, man.
Yeah, well, they want their they want their fucking Transformers. They want if it's not Fury Road, then they don't want to see it. As if that just doesn't make any. I don't know.
Well, here's one. The film feels unbelievably long at 84 minutes, and the color-drained, handheld cinematography serves only as a reminder of just how good Night of the Living Dead really was.
Okay.
No.
Frankly, it felt fast to me. I was worried that because it was low budget, it would feel long, but I didn't get that. I mean, it was ding, 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 and they, got to the end of it, and that was the end of it. I was surprised at how not dragged out it felt to me.
Yeah.
And one other thing I gotta mention that was awesome to me was when the first guys show up and have, as the bad guys show up, there's a group of 4 bad guys who turn up at the house. Well, 2 of the people are out of the house, and they get the drop on the 3 people who are in the house, right? But because they've somehow messed up and didn't keep track of everybody, right? And it lost track of 2, and they think it's 4 against 3, not 5 against 4. They get wiped out. First team of bad guys gets killed. But the alarm's gone off, and they know that more bad guys are on the way. So our really hardcore member of the team cuts the heads off of the dead bodies of the first team of bad guys. Gotta tell this one. And puts them on stakes around the house. And it's like, what's this for? And it's like, just so they'll know who they're fucking with. Just to let the guys who live by intimidation, right? Who live by terrifying people know that they've picked on the wrong fuckers, that they've picked on an equally terrifying group. That was really smart. That was one of the smartest things I remember in that film, going, well, if you're badass enough to stomach cutting the guy's head off, that will give some people pause.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's, like I said, there's a lot of smart things about it. Despite somebody saying glum, poorly acted, and hard on the eyes, The Day is a flat feature with few spikes of absurdity that push the production into unintentional camp.
Wow. I did not see anything campy about that.
Yeah, but again, these are people expecting big budget stuff. But no, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good film. Campy and glum, hard on the eyes. Well, again, you're trying to create if it was all bright and colorful, it's hard to convey a bleak world.
Yeah. Yeah, they needed to make this world look ugly, and they had a budget. So they did it with some filters, and they did it with some singular locations. I, for one, actually felt physically uncomfortable watching them when it's raining and there's one room in the house that has a leaky roof, so that when they're showering in the rainfall. The way that was shot and the way it was cut, I felt like they were taking a dip in ice water. It felt uncomfortable watching them try to wash the grime off, in this ice water. That worked for me. I was, that absolutely worked for me. But hey, what can I say? To each their own. We're recommending it. We think you'll get 84 minutes worth of entertainment out of it.
Oh yeah, it's a quick film. It's again, it's a good film. I think it's is it the best film out there? No, but I think it's a solid film. Again, coming from the small pool of apocalyptic films, especially small indie films, it's a good film. I think it conveys, it tells a good story. I think it's
a little derivative of the road. A little derivative of the road.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the worst thing I can say about it.
Yeah, like another good film that came out of Canada, which we should do this one too, is Stakeland.
Oh,
that's another one. It did have one like probably prolonged scene that was totally like indie film. Like there was one scene in the Stakeland that's like, yeah, we're watching an indie film. The music and the scene, and it's like, yeah, this is suffering from indie film syndrome right here. But except for that, again, good film. Again, you have to.
We should go see Stakeland 2.
I know, I want to see that.
And then we can do them both in one episode, because we've gotten plenty of zombie apocalypses, nuclear apocalypses, mutant apocalypses, and virus apocalypse. But vampire apocalypses do not get enough love.
Very few, and they did a great job of it. So, all right, we'll put that on our list. I gotta, get Stakeland too. So, all right, bottom line, folks, The Day, totally worth your time if you're a fan of the post-apocalyptic genre.
Yeah.
So, it should be like, I got it. I got it on, I have it on Blu-ray and DVD. I got it pretty cheap on Amazon at one point. I did not see it on any of the free stuff. Like I didn't see it as a film on Netflix or Amazon Prime.
No, I looked around
as a free movie
on Hulu, Amazon, Netflix. Didn't find it there, but it was. It did. The first time I saw it was on Netflix.
Yeah, it was on there at some point. It's well, apparently you could. rent it or buy it on Amazon for,
$1.99.
oh, $5.99. Maybe that's
Oh,
buying
really?
it. Maybe that's buying it. It's
I thought I could rent it for like $2.
iTunes has it for let's see. No, there's no renting it at this point, but you can buy it for like let me see more purchase options here. Hold on. You can buy the standard edition for $5.99 or buy it for $7.99 digital.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, it's if you have Shudder on Amazon, it's like
their new horror, her new horror thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Shudder. So there are ways to get it. I'm looking to see if it's physical copy of it, what it's selling for.
The
You could get the DVD for $7.97 on Amazon Prime. If you have Prime, you get it for under $10. You can buy it digitally for under $10, or you can just try to find it to rent somewhere. But it's cheap enough,
when it comes to cannibals, I mean, they're a classic trope of the post-apocalypse. They're also a classic trope of horror films in general. Whether it's the Hills Have Eyes, or it's Bone Tomahawk, or it's the Sawyer family from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Cannibals turn up a lot as one of those things that everyone agrees is scary and horrible. There's very few cultures that are cool with cannibalism in any format. I was just, before the show, I was wondering, what are the other tropes, or what are the other things that are like the big taboos of most societies? And I was thinking cannibalism is a big one. It is not a big, lots of societies keep articles of the dead around, like the skulls of your enemies, or the bones of saints, or things like that. That shit happens all the time in cultures, but nobody likes the idea of cannibalism. Everyone thinks that most everyone thinks incest is gross, right? And that you shouldn't do that. Most cultures have bans on that. And so incest shows up in horror a lot. And while cultures will permit headhunting or pieces of a saint, like a finger bone of a saint, or keeping a body of a saint or something like that, or keeping an enemy's head as a trophy or something, necrophilia is right out. Necrophilia is one of those things that is a way of defiling the dead that most societies are super opposed to, like universally. And I was just trying to figure out, are there any other big tropes that, sort of relate to, and I'm beginning to wonder if they all relate to, a lot of them relate to the treatment of the dead.
Yeah.
Treating the dead badly is something that a lot of cultures, if you're treating the dead badly, there's a message, like you turning somebody's head into a goblet, the skull into a drinking vessel. That's a big fuck you to the people that you defeated.
Yeah.
So, or not burying the dead, letting people just lay out in the field and be, let the coyotes or vultures get them. I was just wondering, what other the big sort of almost universal taboos besides incest, cannibalism, necrophilia? That's a big one. But I was trying to come up with like a third one, or sorry, a fourth one of like, sort of universally accepted. Like if you took a Viking and you put them next to an Apache, they'd both go, yeah, you shouldn't do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think you've hit the big ones, especially with the dead. The dead also translates to, the treatment of ancestors.
Yeah.
They're big, a lot of cultures are big on that, with like disrespecting your ancestors, which again relates to all tying into, treatment of the dead.
Yeah. And ultimately into some form, something about religion,
Yeah.
And the afterlife. I'm trying to remember, because lots of cultures let you leave babies out. That shocks me. That when it comes to like children born with a bad sign, like if they're born with a cowl over their head or a birthmark, lots of cultures go, whoa, bad juju, you got to leave the baby out in the wilderness and expose them to the elements. Lots of cultures do that. European, ancient European cultures, older Central and South American cultures. Lots of cultures do that, which is weird. It's like they're willing to be meaner to an infant than they are to a dead body. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no one's as angry about, like, but of course, exposing an infant's about avoiding a supernatural problem, generally speaking.
Which again goes back to religion.
Yeah, it's about avoiding a problem rather than anything else. But
regardless,
I'm just wondering if there's anything else that turns up in post-apocalyptic stuff, because cannibalism is one of our big fears. It's one of our big taboos. And so when societies break down and the rules of society disappear, the things that we're most afraid of, cannibalism, murder, not being secure in any of yourself or your things, rape, those are the things that we suddenly become really afraid of in those environments. Or just being neglected and abandoned and having people just walk past you and let you die, because you broke your leg or you're not worth feeding today or something. I don't know, because the film was about cannibalism, it sort of made me thinking about what are the other sort of taboos that that have become elements of post-apocalyptic stories. I suddenly think about the Rover and think that story was literally about how we treat the dead.
Yeah.
That was a story about a guy who was goddamn serious about treating the important people in his life, looking after them after they're dead, and nothing was going to stand in his way to get there. Anyways,
but
we should wrap this up.
Yeah, we wrap it up. Yeah, we'll save this for an off-topic show. We'll just talk for hours. So, so anyway, folks, The Dead. If you get your hands on it, it's probably just on YouTube. You could find it.
I looked at the trailers there. I did not see it on YouTube.
Huh, surprising. But it's there. You could get it cheap, if you want to invest it. If you want to invest in it, it's reasonable. Or I'm sure people go to torrent sites or whatever. So, worth your time. All right, so that's the day, folks. We definitely want to have another show before the end of the year.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, solstice, whatever else is out there.
Happy end of the fourth fiscal quarter. Guess that's a thing you say.
Yeah, I guess so. Happy holidays, everybody. Happy New Year. They said we're not gonna get it before the holidays, because Scott's got shit going on. I got shit going on. Maybe we'll do something. As Scott theoretically will be coming to Florida sometime in January.
Yeah, last half of January, and looks like I'm gonna be back in April too.
Oh, okay.
We're going to be, speaking of treating the dead well, I will be interring my father from his urn and putting him in a resting place with his parents down in Sarasota. And so the family's going to get together and do that in April.
Oh, okay. His parents are in Sarasota, huh? Interesting.
Yeah, that's where they retired. That's where my grandmother passed away. And when my grandfather died in New Orleans, they brought him back. They had they had invested money in their local Catholic church. They had given a fair amount of money, and so they had a place in the wall of the burial yard that they could, right there in the church, where their ashes were interred, like Medici's or something, giving money to a cathedral so they could be buried in it.
Well, they do that. Like my grandmother was she was cremated and put in a wall, like there was a Jewish cemetery where they did that. So, well, if you want to get into, we won't get the technicalities of you're not supposed to cremate. You're supposed to, anyway.
I'm pretty sure if there's a second coming, God's going to figure out how to bring us back from ashes.
Yeah.
I've always been a little weirded out by he's omnipotent, but he can't bring you back if you're ashes.
Well, no, it's whatever practices. So anyway, Scott will be down in January. Where we might try to do something. Record together there if we don't do something beforehand. I'm trying to think. Scott needs to pick up a copy of Dust because I finished Dust, so we're going to review Dust once he reads his copy because I wrote Dust, so we can finish off the trilogy. What else? We'll think of something to do. We might do just an off-topic show just to kind of just get a round robin. Maybe I'll get some Friends of the Apocalypse on, and we will.
We can go back to Stakeland. We can go talk about now that you've got. I've seen Train to Busan now, which you'd already seen.
Yeah,
you see Girl with All the Gifts, and I'd be interested in getting a comparison between these two very modern apocalyptic zombie movies. One at the beginning and one 10 years after, because that's what Girl with All the Gifts is. It's 10 years down the line minimum since it started.
Okay,
I think you'll be interested.
Yeah, I think that's actually on either Netflix or Amazon. So I've seen it. I've seen it on one of them, so I'll watch it. Yeah, and Trade Busan's good. So yeah, we got plenty of material, folks. We'll get something. We'll get something together soon. Maybe me and Scott will go down to when he's here. We'll go down to Mount Dora and.
Check out the home of Last Babylon.
Yeah, or maybe I'll reread that, and we could maybe do a Last Babylon and do it from location or something. We'll figure something out, folks. So anyway, thanks for joining us as always. And again, because I posted about the changes, how I'm not Facebook events. I'm just posting everything from the blog. So if you follow social media, you'll see. If you follow Twitter, you follow Facebook, you'll see all the posts I do off the blog.
Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You will get a ping.
Survive hopefully, because they're changing all their algorithms. But the surest way to know what the hell's going on is if you go to podcast@groundzero.com. On the right column, towards the top, there is a subscribe to this blog via email. Okay, so there's already like 350 something people already did that. So just fill up your email. There's no spam. It's just you just get when I post. So
yeah, we're not selling you anything.
Yeah, not yet. So just put your email in and subscribe. So anytime I post to the blog, you'll get an email to say, hey, there's a show coming up. Here's some interesting facts. Here's this, here's that. So that way you're sure to get the information, because Facebook now buries stuff, unless you're paying them for your posts to come up. YouTube's doing the same shit. So, but definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel, because then at least you'll know when you get stuff, and subscribe on the blog so you'll get those posts. So that way you're going to be sure to get that information. And iTunes for at least the new shows. I'm several episodes behind converting to put up the audio. I will try to do that in the next couple weeks, so at least I'll get caught up on that, so you can find it all in iTunes. But regardless, again, Merry New Year, everybody, and we will see you
in the future.
We'll see you in the future. We'll see you guys next time. So again, Jared, he's Scott. We thank you for joining us as always, and we'll see you in the Wastelands. Good night.
Good night.